we pretty much nailed it, so you guys can go drink. That's cool. So hi, you have just one more thing to get through, and we'll turn you loose on the evening. But one of the things that I should tell you as we're going in, for those of you who aren't familiar with content strategy and what it is in sort of agency world, we are charged with a number of things, but one of them is with trying to help our clients put the right content on the website. When we get into questions of what's right and what's good, we're starting to sway towards ethics in some fairly complicated ways. As the introduction would suggest, actually I used to teach ethics, and I used to deal with the tradition of ethics and rhetoric for a long time. So now you guys are probably all calculating, like, oh my God, I've got 10 minutes to get through this. Please, God, I hope he doesn't show a picture of Aristotle or something. There's a picture of Aristotle, by the way. But the things that I want to bring forth tonight are a little bit more about the practicalities of agency world. A lot of what happens in classical ethics and otherwise is about the nitty-gritty where the rubber meets the road. A lot of sentence-by-sentence things, utterance by utterance, button label by button label stuff. And this is kind of what content strategy deals with in the agency world, so sometimes we have to bring it down to a very ground level. And that's kind of what I want to talk about tonight, what happens between the top and the very bottom of the ground. So what I'm going to do this is I'm going to start with some of the roots of content strategy, very old traditions of content strategy, and then jump a couple thousand years up to the present and talk about what actually happens when you have to talk to a client about it. So the first is the challenge question. What do marketers know about ethics?
Nothing.
Exactly. That's a pretty big question. Marketers just know how to trick people. Okay, so this by the way, it's actually a very good book called Influence, about the science of tricking people. The Buddhist tradition picked up on a lot of this a couple thousand years ago. So in the old school, the Lotus Sutra, a Bodhisattva named Wondrous Sound was able to speak to each person in his or her own language. And for someone who needed the language of music, he used music. For someone who understood the language of drugs, spoke in terms of drugs. True enough. What's so good about that? So you've got all the questions the Buddhists raised about personalization, about the right content in the right place at the right time, all those things that were kind of buzzwordy in marketing. They had to also deal with the part about what's good about it. It's good when a Bodhisattva says it, is one possible answer. So maybe marketers have to learn to get their Bodhisattva on. So we know that Bodhisattvas use marketing language. Okay, because does it go the other way? We've got a lot of challenges in front of us. So, considering that we have no discernible skills and no way to demonstrate it, this is not going to be a simple job. So I want to take you to the patron saint of lawyers, politicians, ethicists, and people who talk for a living, Aristotle. By the way, this is actually not really a bad book. It contains, actually the third book contains a whole bunch of instructions on how to tell jokes, when jokes are good in public speaking and stuff like that. But the thing I wanted to talk to you about a little bit tonight is how Aristotle filled in that other piece, which is the character of the person who's talking matters to a large extent. And he called this ethos. He also had a couple of other branches of rhetoric, pathos and logos, which basically feeling and thinking. But I wanted to talk a little bit about character, because I think that's some of the biggest challenges that we face as marketers and some of our clients face as having to live with themselves every day. By the way, Huge represents some of the most hated brands in the world, including ExxonMobil and Comcast. So this is, we're not just dreaming about this stuff. Aristotle says that a speaker's ethos should reflect practical wisdom, virtue, and goodwill. If this is something that's behind good persuasion and good politics and good law and good ethics, what are we doing to recommend that clients actually make that happen? How do clients, of all people, how does ExxonMobil, of all organizations, represent this stuff, if they should? So the important point behind this is that your credibility and authority depends on who people think you are. Aristotle was pretty cynical. He just said you have to appear to be wise and of goodwill to help sway people. But I think that a lot of us here want to consider how we possibly go a little bit deeper, really. It's also worth remembering as we go along through here that content is transactional. It's always about a speaker and a listener. And I think Kat has alluded to this. I think Daniel alluded to this. But it's important. It's a gesture from a person to a person. Content represents that one way or another, even if it's not very explicit in anybody's mind. It always implies a relationship, distant or close, alien or sympathetic, adversarial or collaborative between people. And some content relationships can be pretty unhealthy. So here's just a short list of cajoling, wheedling, scamming, sweet-talking, spinning, proclaiming, buttonholing, grandstanding, broadcasting, misrepresentation, and marketing. I just skipped right to that. How about helping? One of the things that we talk about a lot in interaction design, for instance, is serving users. And there's a great user experience quote, we should always treat people according to their own wants and intentions, not how we or others want, not what we or others want of them. By the way, this is from the hottest bestseller in ethics from the past couple of years. A guy named Ian King wrote a book called How to Make Decisions and Always Be Right. I think it's roughly close. Oh, there we go. Let me get that right. No, how to make good decisions, be right all the time. Sorry. So one of the things that people who know me know that I spend a weird amount of time talking to clients about things like generosity and about clarity and about service. Some clients are easier than others to talk about this, but I have to say, this is weird but true, these are really, really matter in setting marketing strategy for clients, good or evil. We actually talk this way to them. I'm going to take you through an example of somebody that we talked to this way. The American Express was one of our clients, and I've got some excerpts from something we talked to them about. They are actually a pretty easy group in this realm, weirdly enough. As say, world-class service is their brand. And from the 1950s and earlier, you have this world service as part of the brand logo. Weird but true. There are a lot of other things today, but let me tell you how we began to weave them through this. Again, some of these kinds of moral steps forward are incremental gains, but they can actually happen in our workday. First, we wanted to talk to them about the fact that content has a human voice. Part of what we built up to before this was talking to them about their service brand and how they had lost it on a number of their sites. We want to make sure that we had looked at and listened to a lot of what they did and thought about. And there are a lot of people of very good faith and goodwill in that organization who want to help people do things in return for a modest payment. They could really resonate with the idea of being a good service company. It's really it's what they do, not just what they put on their brand labels. And so we started to talk to them about service personae and what that had to do with the voice of their site. So one thing we pointed, of course, to make them feel really uncomfortable, we pointed at other people. So like JetBlue using customer voices. One of the things that was important about the site at that time was that it had no people on it. It had pictures of cards, it had pictures of exotic travel destinations, it had pictures of traveler's checks, and it had lots of words. And it was very, one of the things we wanted to do to them is like, consider the presence of card members, consider the presence of people on your site. They can tell your story at least as well as you can. So in a very, very early design iteration, we talked to them about putting somebody out who might actually have an investment, who was able to do something with your service that was of value to her or him. Now granted, it's an Amex-style transaction, it's an Amex-style action, but still, it's a significant jump for them to give control over to their users in telling their own user stories. And we took a look at some of their copy too. For instance, we said that you could be transactive. You could talk to somebody like you or they're on the other side, say, we see you. You can. If you do this, you can. And what they had originally, by the way, was for your security, our records indicate that you have established a personal security key. It's like that, that's fairly forbidding. Let's put it that way. Nobody cares, by the way, about your records or what they've established or that you have a personal security key or anything else like that. You want to tell somebody, that what they can do and how you can help them if it's something important for them to do. And when we talk, for instance, about generosity on sites, it's important to respect the time that your users are spending there. They have to do something like sign up for a card if that's what they want to do. Make sure they get through that simply. Make sure they get through it easily. Make sure they can get on with the rest of their life that's a lot more valuable to them than signing up for your card. We showed them how Skype, for instance, was good at handing over control to other people. There's 20 links off this page, but almost all of them are framed as, this is your account. You can do this stuff. Activate this stuff that will be good for you. Here's your things. And it's clear, it's simple, it gives them a bunch of controls, like control panel for Skype, in a way that Amex had not at that point presented anything to their clients. The thing that Amex really keyed into was phone service. They have a really, I don't know if you've ever called Amex for anything, their phone people are fabulous. They're geniuses, and I think they're actually understood at Amex to be the pride of the company. They're really, really good people. The service is exceptional, the best I've ever had. Any phone call is answered by someone who knows what to do and how to get it done. And a little bit how to upsell, but mostly, these guys are good service people. And so we wanted to put some principles down about learning from your service reps. And service reps, as you say, can be things like thoughtful, respectful, attentive, efficient, effective, and generous. Those are great content principles if you're trying to put self-service on your website and really mean it. So we also we noticed that phone calls break down into small steps. This is what I was talking about earlier when I talked about content strategy being a set of small transactions and interactions. There's invitations to do something. There's advice. There's instruction, feedback, support, checking in. All these things go into that sort of nebulous category that we call messaging a lot of times. But this is the really important stuff. These are the transactional moments where the rubber meets the road, and you want to do each of them well. So the plan that we gave to Amex had to do with setting, doing those small things really, really well. And I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of how it planned, but weirdly enough, and this is much to our surprise as well as anybody else's, we were asked back 4 times to Amex to give this to lots of different audiences in the company about how they could begin to think about the website. And eventually, it's a very slow-moving organization, it's very big, it began to take. And a lot of their designs shifted a little bit, and their disclaimer language dropped down. The influence of their legal department faded out of a lot of the on-site copy. And the designs that you can see, I think we've made a place that's at least a little bit humane for you to come to when you have to do card transactions. Now, the question about whether you can do that in bigger ways with bigger clients on bigger issues is wide open. And I think that's a great dialogue for all of us to have tonight and a conversation for us to continue. But it would be nice to try to meet this challenge. Every word the Bodhisattva wondrous sound said opened up communication and helped others transform. We can do the same, but it takes determination and skillfulness. And try to pick yourself up with that, because at the end, if you have a job that allows you to speak the truth, please be grateful.